What's going on, everybody? If you don't know, now you do know. You're officially tuned in to a very special edition of the HFWB podcast series. This is your host, Clifton Pope, and I usually don't do this. As you could tell, it's like we're in a very different location, very different scenery, and this is a very special occasion. We're actually live here at Joint Venture Health and Wellness. We are here basically honoring the wonderful Dr. Bridget Cole Williams and the release of her wonderful book, The Courage in Cannabis, Volume 2. And we're going to get into all of the details in regards to that, like the backstory, how it came together and everything. Got to give, of course, special shout out to Ms. Felicia Gomez for Felmy Productions for helping put together this whole spectacular event that we're about to do here. And honestly, this is probably going to be the biggest podcast for the HFWB podcast series because, like I said, I have a very special woman here, and it's like, not, she's a family physician, she's a cannabinoid specialist, she's a CEO of Mind and Body Life, she's the creator of course, the Courage in Cannabis books. She's an educator, empowerment coach. She's a best-selling author. She's a just the overall professional keynote speaker and just the overall motivator and innovator as far as what she's currently doing, raising the awareness of the medical side of things as far as in the cannabis industry. With that being said, if you don't know who I'm talking about by now, I want to introduce the lovely Dr. Bridget Cole Williams to the HFWB podcast series. How's it going today?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm excited about this and what a great
Yes.
opportunity.
No, thank you for just making time out of your busy schedule just to be a part of the HFWB podcast series. And with that being said, it's like, tell the people for those who are listening to the HFWB podcast series, like your overall background story. How did you get involved in family practice and as far as just achieving the doctorates, becoming a doctor, and of course, turning that into just being an overall cannabinoid specialist and just
Sure.
an overall cannabis advocate.
Sure. Absolutely. So, I don't know, that's a lot. So,
It's a lot, yes. But we're going to get into all of this, break it down section by section, y'all.
so just from the beginning, I was very much a patient advocate,
Right.
right? So I grew up with, my father had colon cancer. So I spent a lot of time in hospitals and just seeing this, mountain of a man, this incredible person, you know, with his body failing him, right? And so in and out of rooms would come, the whole group of white coats. And what I realized is they were not acknowledging myself, my mother, my brother, and not even acknowledging my father.
Right.
They come in, they talk amongst themselves, they talk about him,
Right.
and then they would walk out. And I felt so lost in that experience. And when it would happen over and over again, I would say, I could do this better.
Mhm.
And eventually my mom would say, yes, you can. And you should. And so my desire to get into medicine, good and bad, was that I was looking to do something different than what was already in place.
Going against the odds to a
Yeah,
certain extent.
absolutely. Absolutely. And going against the norm has its own challenges and problems, right? So going into family medicine was important because it allowed me that opportunity to really connect with families, to connect with people, as opposed to focusing on one issue and going in and out. I was really focused on what that patient experience was like and what that family experience was like. So I went through all my training in medical school, did my residency at the Cleveland Clinic, and stayed with the Cleveland Clinic as a staff physician for most of my career.
Right.
During that time, I got frustrated. I realized that we were no longer doing the art of medicine, but we were doing more pharmaceutical medicine.
Right.
So visits are 15 minutes if you're lucky. And during that time, we diagnosed and we provide a pill. And I realized I had a factory job, right? In and out of rooms all day, diagnosis pill, like little widgets.
Yes.
And I was frustrated. My patients were more frustrated.
Mhm.
And we actually started working on helping people get off of pills. So I would put them in on my lunch hour. I put them in on the end of the day for these select people that really very organically, we said, we're going to do something different here. One of those patients was a breast cancer survivor and a diabetic, and she was the first person that ever asked me about cannabis. And this was years ago. And so, I was like, oh, she's crazy. Like, what, why is she, but that was the first person that asked me about it. And that led me to research.
Okay.
And, long story short, that's how I got here.
Yes, and sometimes it always just takes just one person just to
Absolutely.
spark the interest as far as, maybe I should look into this a little bit more and everything. And it's like, do you have like a particular like cannabis story to where it sparked that drive to want to dig into it a little bit more that you can reflect on?
Well, the fact of the matter is, I had a lot of respect for this patient. She had an aggressive form of breast cancer.
Okay.
She was newly diagnosed with diabetes. She was incredibly angry because she felt like I had all this fight and I got over this breast cancer and now you want me to have diabetes. And if you are a diabetic or if you know a diabetic, that first day that they come in, you're probably leaving minimum 3 prescriptions, if not 5. So here I am saying, okay, you got 5 new medications. I'll see you in 2 weeks. And I know why that is the case, but I also understood her frustration. And so we got started on the medications, and then she asked me, what do you think about cannabis for this? And I was like, gee, she seems like she's a smart lady. Like, what is going on? And so I literally started doing the research because I knew she would have questions. And I said, I'm going to show her why this is a bad idea. But in the course of it, I saw that there was all this medical research, particularly going on around the world, right?
Yes.
And that there were all these medicinal possibilities that I knew nothing. I mean, nothing about. And I went back to her, shared with her what I was learning. She said, I get it. And she started making edibles. She started smoking. I started learning about dosing and timing of it. And I saw her health transform in a way completely different from my pharmaceutical patients. And to be totally honest, at that point in time, this was slightly illegal, I suppose, right? Experimental maybe is a better word. I'll use that. And so when it did become legal in Ohio, I knew I wanted to help more patients in that way. And so that's what led to me creating my first company, Green Harvest Health. And then now I do Dr. Bridget MD, because I don't care about the cards.
Right.
I care about the patient experience and them finding their wellness, and not only but being motivated and empowered in their wellness, right?
Yes.
So that's how we got here.
And it's funny that you mentioned the overall patient experience because most doctors, they'll of course see the patient and they'll be kind of like more like, okay, in, out, of course, take advantage of the money, take advantage of what they get out in the back end from the insurances, but you're striving about the importance about the patient experience. For an up and coming doctor who is trying to be like in your position, Dr. Richard, it's like describe the importance of the patient experience to them and what that means just for better overall health, just for the sake of the patient, for those who want to get like a little insight on this.
Sure. So, I came into medicine at there was being that was the big shift. So when I started my career, I saw older physicians leaving frustrated because they had more control over their practice, and all of a sudden they were forced into these little 15-minute visits. And that because basically the insurance companies, the HMOs, the pharmaceutical companies really started to gain most of the control, and they were losing their autonomy as physicians. And so if you are new in going into medicine, first of all, we have a lot of work to do,
Yes.
right? Because I really do believe that the medical the medical programs, our healthcare environment is actually the most unhealthiest environment that we have. Okay. But you don't just do it for the patient, which is clear. But if you want to have longevity in medicine as any sort of practitioner, your joy comes from helping people.
Yes.
And you will burn out and you will want to leave. So if you don't do it for any other reasons, if you want to have a positive, long, rewarding career, make patient care and their experience the forefront, and you will actually do better in the long run.
Yes, it's all about the community and it's like helping the community thrive and uplifting them, empowering them, and inspiring them. And it's like everybody has their own story to tell, which is kind of ironic because it leads me into what the reason why we're
Sure.
here, which is
Yeah.
courage and cannabis right here. This wonderful, triumphant stories of people just going through the overall experiences of just their experience with cannabis, how it benefited them, what they can learn from it, and help explain it to others as well. I have to understand like the backstory of like how all this came together because based on our conversation we had yesterday after
Mhm.
lunch, it was like one minute it was you were like, I think I'm gonna do a book and kind of put all this into context as far as all the stories and stuff. And then you actually did it, and then it was like getting all the different individuals together as far as just to tell their piece. It's like there's so much that went in as far as just putting together this book. Kind of explain the backstory of how Courage and Cannabis Volume 1 and 2 came together and
Sure.
turned into the phenomenon that it's slowly but surely
Yeah.
becoming.
Yeah. So when I wanted to get into the cannabis space, I
Right.
figured I'd do like everybody else and join some card company. And, I was getting a job and I said, this is exciting. We can do treatment plans and follow-ups and research. And, these company guys were like, yeah, we don't care about that. We're cards for cash. We just write cards and we leave. We don't even know anything about cannabis. And I was like, okay, so this isn't the right fit for me.
Right.
And I realized this was my opportunity to create the practice that my patients that I've been working with years ago always wanted.
Mhm.
So we created a practice where it was 45-minute visits, where we really got to understand the patient, where we were providing education and treatment in the cannabis realm. So in the course of that, I really got to hear people's stories. And one of those first patients was this big, burly truck driver guy and, had a lot of pain issues. And I'm handing him his card. And as I'm handing him the card, I could see tears welling up in his eyes. And I was, what's going on here? And he starts shaking the card at me. He's like, I am going to take this to my 10-year-old son. And I'm going to tell him I'm not a pothead. I'm a patient. And I was so struck by that. And the guilt and the shame he carried with him because he had been using cannabis before that moment. And I realized every time I was giving someone a card that had already been using cannabis, I was freeing them from that guilt and that shame. I had another woman that said, I'm taking this card and going back to church because she felt like she couldn't use cannabis and go to church, that she felt somewhere
You have to
not
draw the
only
line
being
somewhere. Yeah.
right, like she felt like she was a sinner, she felt like she'd be judged. There's so many issues that were related to that. And in the course of it, like you said, everyone's got a story here. And if we don't record these stories, history always repeats itself, and usually not for the better. And I wanted an opportunity for people to hear the stories that I was hearing and to use that as a tool for learning. And I had my own story. As I was shared, I kind of went into medicine to change it. And I was literally burning out. I was thinking, maybe I'm just going to go another avenue altogether. And it's because of the opportunity to treat cannabis patients and to do it in the way that I believe patients should be treated that it kept me in the medical field. Right.
Yeah.
And so in the first book, I share my story. And in the second book, I share more of my opinion about medical and recreational use. But I knew that if more places, if legislators, if churchgoers, if people isolated in the cannabis space could connect with other people, that they would feel more of a sense of community. And that's the other aspect of this. The authors are a community of people that it's not just networking, but we support each other in our experiences. And so I honestly I couldn't sleep at night. The books came around because it was so nagging me that this had to be done that I really changed everything in my schedule to be able to create them.
Got you. Out of all the stories in there, which one do you feel like sticks out to you to the most to where it's like, oh, this is really what defines courage in cannabis, the overall movement within itself? One that sticks out to you particularly, the word even struck you like, oh, this mission, this is getting serious now.
So you're asking me which is my favorite child? Yeah. Okay.
To a certain
Yeah. Okay.
to a certain extent, yes. There's always that one story that just hits you from the heart where it's like, wow, the sense of purpose is there and now it's
Sure.
officially established.
Sure. So, I cannot even address that without really stating the obvious that Candy Flores I met when the book was an idea. Okay. And
Special shout out to Candy Flores,
right.
yes.
So, I met her and I think I might have had like a little postcard maybe saying, "Oh, I'm working on a book. You should be in my book. I want stories," right? And in meeting her, she gets probably more interaction and to be honest, like with every story in here, you can contact the author directly,
Right.
but I still get a lot of those calls, right? And I've had more people out saying what happened, and tell the rest of the story. And, sometimes they're shy, obviously, to call the author themselves.
Right.
But her story really struck more people than I think probably anyone else's.
Got you. And it's like cannabis is now like forever evolving. It's like it's not about the psychological effects as far as getting high and stuff. It's like it's healing like so many different like diseases and conditions. It's like all the benefits from the CBD. It's like it's
Mhm.
helping out with, for instance, like muscle spasms and so many other things. It's like
Mhm.
kind of break down the difference as far as like the medicinal side versus the recreational side, because we were talking about this a little bit earlier as far as some people don't know which direction to go into and they don't exactly know what it means as far as, oh, can I just go in and buy some or do I have to have like a card like you were
Mhm.
to a green card? Kind of break down the difference between the medicinal side and the recreational side as far as the overall,
Like the whole picture
the
there.
whole picture there.
So,
Sure, yes.
I still believe that for the great majority of people, that recreational is medicinal. Okay. And for some people, that might mean as little as allowing them to relax and get out of their head. And for many others, they're literally treating conditions that they don't know they have. They just know that when they use cannabis, not that they feel better, they feel normal.
Right.
And for a lot of, particularly my PTSD patients, so people that have traumatic, stress disorder where they're having nightmares and they're triggered by all sorts of different things, sometimes they're very well connected to that experience. Sometimes they just know that when I use cannabis, I don't have that experience. I sleep at night. I don't have nightmares. And so I definitely think more education is needed because it is good to know what's going on. But depending on your state depends on what's available to you, unfortunately,
Yes.
because we should be able to have this is a medication like any other.
Right.
It should be a first try. Like you shouldn't have to be an alternative. You don't have to go through every other medication before you get to this medication. And the fact of the matter is, if there are a lot of cannabis refugees,
Yes.
people that have had to leave their state either for themselves or for their child so they could have access to this in a different state, and they lose their support system, and that's unfortunate as well. So when it comes to the difference between medicinal and recreational, many times it's access to different types of flower, different types of process, tinctures and what have you. Because when people think rec, they think THC. That does not have to be the case.
Yeah.
CBG flower is kind of that middle of the road.
Yeah.
It's not the full euphoric effect of THC, but it's not just the normalizing effect of CBD. It's kind of in the middle, right?
Perfect balance.
It's a balance, right?
Yes.
And so it's unfortunate when people think rec is all THC, and unfortunately, that's how our industry is built. But recreational really means social. And social can be CBD, it could be any of these cannabinoids, it can be the terpenes themselves. And so we need to widen how people look at it so that our recreational culture is more diverse.
Gotcha.
Right? THC's been ruling it, the whole time.
Yes.
And, I always say this, and one of the authors in the book always catches me. I never demonize THC. I never demonize getting high, right? Because everything serves its purpose.
Right.
But I do think we have to have more diverse perspective on what social use is. And then, medicinal really comes down to what is your condition, and then really pinpointing the research and the information where different cannabinoids help for different things, different terpenes help for different things, and different modalities or the route of administration can help different conditions in different ways.
Yeah, it's just like understanding like both sides of the story and
Hmm.
everything. And it's like, it's incredible as far as just how far we've come with cannabis within itself. Like it's now being treated again for all the medical conditions and stuff like that. And most importantly, it's creating jobs. It's becoming a $1 billion industry. We can go down the line like where it started in Colorado. I mean, look at California. They're making billions of dollars. We were talking about this yesterday. Michigan is kind of like becoming like the stable to where it's like everything. It's like the recreational, the medical. It's like everything all together. It's like Michigan. And I saw that you were actually speaking, of course, in your home, Detroit, Michigan, as far as just talking about all of that. Kind of like describe why Michigan you feel like is now going to be like the forefront of everything as far as cannabis going forward in your eyes.
Absolutely. So the nice thing about Michigan is that they allowed they saw that this was something that was being asked for by the people.
Right.
They saw the medicinal aspect, they saw the future with recreational, and they allowed room for the big industry cannabis, corporations. But they also allowed a lot of room
Right.
for the cottage industry, for the home grow, for people that really cared about this medicinally and were growing at home, creating products at home, and serving patients themselves. And so, with all that being combined, it's a complex kind of ecosystem in itself, but it allowed space for you didn't have to have millions of dollars to open a dispensary.
Yeah.
In most states, if you are not part of a large multi-state organization, or if you just don't have, a couple million just sitting on the table, you can't even get into this. Michigan allowed opportunity for the everyday person. They also allowed room for the social equity and people in communities that struggled with the war on drugs. And that is why they are being seen as the model, because there's something for everyone.
Got you. Got you. Overall, with the cannabis movement going forward, as far as it being legalized everywhere across the country, where do you feel like, in your sense, that direction is going, say, within the next 3 to 5 year window, based on everything you've seen all across the country, traveling everywhere? You've gone just pushing the overall movement as far as the medicinal side of things. Like, where do you see legalization of cannabis as an entirety within the next 3 to 5 years?
Uh, um,
In your own eyes,
well,
based on
that
everything.
creates a certain amount of anxiety, just, the question itself. But joint ventures has some things that will help you, right? But
Salute the joint venture.
100%. Like,
Back it out.
if you're going to start anywhere, anxiety, we all have it on some level. And if we can bring that down a little bit.
Calm down.
So, yeah, so, stop by here. But what I really see happening is, and it's upsetting because the cannabis industry is going to allow pharmaceutical companies to do what they've always done, to manipulate, to come in and take over. And so right now, and I've had some of these companies actually come to me and wanted me to work with them. They're creating synthetic, but also plant-based cannabis pills.
Yeah.
That will be FDA approved, that will be covered by insurance. And basically, the medical model, the medical aspect of cannabis is going back into the physician's office, into the pharmaceutical space. The same doctor that kicked you out of their practice for testing positive for cannabis will now say, "Oh, I got this new medication. What is it? I don't know, but it's great." And it'll be cannabis, okay? Which then pushes our current model with our growers and our processors, manufacturers to be all recreational. Then that puts CBD in a space of its own, right? Because it's a little bit of both, right? We have the growers, we have the processors, the hemp, what have you. It is medicinal, but it can be recreational or social as well. So I believe that CBD will take a little bit of a hit, but then they will find an incredible space in the wellness industry, right? So just like you go to Joint Ventures or GNC or a vitamin shop, and you're picking up your valerian root or St. John's wort, your B12 or, turmeric pills or whatever it is that you like to use because you don't want pharmaceuticals, that segment will grow. And CBD will be huge in that. CBD will also be big in the beauty industry. And they're utilizing CBD and other cannabinoids not by going plant-based, not by going synthetic, but they're doing like biosynthesis. So they're getting yeast and different aspects because it's cheaper and it's faster. And for the most part, it's topical. So they're creating, so you can basically do a chemical process and make CBD from yeast. Okay. And so, and it's cheaper. So it'll be huge, huge in the beauty space. Okay. So we still have a long road to go. We still have a lot of research that needs to be done.
Of course, without doubt.
But, so part of that I think can be really beneficial, but then I don't like the idea that what I focus on is that patients are empowered to control their own wellness. And so if all the medical stuff goes back into the same sick environment of pharmaceuticals, that makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, because it's like all the pharmaceutical companies, when they put out these prescriptions, they want to slap a drug label on them, warning you about what you're going to take, all the effects it can have. And some people will look at it and just toss it to the side. But then you throw in like CBD, for instance, most people will be like, no, 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 no. Where's all the directions? What effects is it going to have? Now they want to raise their attendance and have questions.
Right.
And it's like they want to throw like a little fancy name on it, but realistically, it's the exact thing that we've been trying to tell you this whole time. They just try to throw a little trick on you
for it.
That too.
This is a cultural, and they've kind of created that because people had to go underground.
Right.
But cannabis became a cultural aspect. Historically, it's a cultural plant-based home remedy. And for really across the world, ancestrally, it is a home remedy that has been used. And I feel like the pharmaceutical companies will not take good care of that heritage. I feel that, every country and, every little pocket has done something different when it comes to this. But I think in a way that the cannabis culture has always respected its roots. I don't think the pharmaceutical companies will. And
they're going to find a way to manipulate it and turn it into something process like everything else in a way.
Or they will use dosages or throw chemicals in where we've never done that before.
Yeah.
And
about creating a potential toxic environment that can easily be avoided without a doubt.
Because we've been using it before and it wasn't an issue. So that's we're here. I would like to say we're here and we're going to obviously be a part of this process, but I feel like I'm kind of like screaming this out. And because the industry is so concerned about growing on its own, we're ignoring this unforeseen issue because it's not obvious right now, but it will be, and I hope it's not too late.
I know. I hope we still got a lot more to do. We got more work to do, more research to be done, and it's like we've come so far, but we still got a long way to go. But overall, Dr. Bridget, we're basically at the point of my podcast where I basically ask a list of questions to everybody who's on the podcast just to kind of pick the brain a little bit, get people to know you a little.
No response, no answer. Okay. I'm ready.
All right, let's do this. First question. What is the first thing you do or think of every single day you wake up?
What is the first thing I do?
Yeah, do or think of every morning that you wake up.
Coffee. Like, that's important.
You gotta have a cup of coffee sometimes.
Yeah, every time.
Undebatable at this point. That's without a doubt.
I got that one.
Of course. When it comes to health and wealth, what is your own personal definition of those two things as far as the overall importance for yourself? What does it mean to you?
Mental health, balance. Like if you your body can be working great and you can have all the money in the world. If mentally you're not where you should be, it doesn't really matter. So health and wealth is mental health.
Yeah, it's kind of like two sides of the coin. It's like I always like to tell people all the time, train the mind and the body can follow without a doubt.
Hmm.
As far as just when it comes to like just education, empowerment and everything, what's the best example as far as like the importance of education for yourself, for the overall public?
Education is freedom.
Mm,
And so, whether you're talking about cannabis or whether talk any aspect of life, education is always going to be freedom. And so, anyone that feels stuck, anyone that feels that they're not being seen or heard, I always look at it, education as an avenue to get you out of that, whatever that means.
that's a good answer. That really is. Now we're gonna go a little bit deeper as far as either or, as far as which one you would pick out of course. First one is, what would you pick out of loyalty or respect?
Oh my God. I should have had these ahead of time. Which one's more important?
Like,
Loyalty or respect?
yeah,
Respect.
okay, okay. Would you rather live in space or live in the ocean?
They're both the unknown and they're both space, but I'll give space.
Got you. Would you rather be famous and poor or rich and anonymous?
Um, oh, I who doesn't want to just be rich and not? What do I care? But I don't want people to.
I love it. I love it.
I don't
Would you-
think there is another answer, but go ahead.
of course, of course. Undebatable yet
Go ahead.
again.
Yes, yes.
Would you rather sing to every song or dance to every song?
Mm, I think I would like to sing, but I think other people would prefer if I dance. I'm not saying I can sing now. However, for, other people's ears, yeah, dancing's probably better.
Got you.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to put you in a scenario, Dr. Bridget. Imagine yourself being trapped on an island to where you had nowhere to go, and you can listen to five of your favorite music artists, and don't matter what genre it is, it can be their whole entire catalog. Who would those five artists be and why?
Hi. Okay.
Yes.
Number one, okay, I have a Barbra Streisand problem. Okay. Every syllable is beautiful. And you probably don't expect, but okay. And that comes out of the fact that I'm also obsessed with musicals. Um, so I don't know if that's one category, but Hamilton's amazing, Les Miserables is amazing. Waitress, not that long. Wicked, okay, whatever, right? Prince, I feel was absolutely poetic, right? And so that's really beautiful. Um, there is like I'm all about Bob Marley, but he has a blues album that is undebatable. And that one album itself is, perfect.
It's a wonder you will have a musical experience like none other, Dr. Bridget. I feel like if somebody was passing by on the island and heard all the music that you just described, they would want to come and have some fun with you and probably get you off of that island eventually.
And I'm hoping they're saving me.
They're going to save you, especially if you have put on
They might
the.
hear the Barbra Streisand and be like, "Yep, let's keep going." But
But if you put on some Prince or Bob Marley, be like
yeah,
Purple Rain or
yeah,
One Love. I mean,
all of it.
they gravitate towards
Yeah,
it
the
without.
B-sides, like it's a requirement.
Of
Yeah.
course. And like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, you travel a lot of places as far as being everywhere that you go. Think of one place that you've been to as far as like your overall favorite place that you've been to, and for instance, a place you would like to travel to that you haven't been yet.
Vacationing or working?
Either or.
Yeah, but it's all the same for me. Yeah.
It kind of is the same. It's like, especially when you're on the go and you're
Yeah.
on a mission, it's like you got to find time to work even when you're on
Right.
vacation. But as far as name a place that you traveled to, as far as that you is your favorite place you've been to and you would go back to, and a place that you haven't been to yet that would like to
Okay,
travel.
so that's also choosing my favorite child. However, I really do love New York. I feel like
I feel
no,
like I'm the only person who hasn't been to New York. I'm
it is
sorry.
amazing. And the thing is that no matter how many times I've gone, I still there's still so much to experience,
Right.
right? So that's definitely always up there. Plus, my daughter threatened me that when everyone else retires and goes to Florida, that she insists that I retire to New York, and I'm not going to argue with her. And where if I want to go, I would love to spend a significant amount of time in like Ghana or like an African country because you can
That's
go in and do, the week and you see all the things that people tell you to see. And I really do like having just, I guess, like with my patients, I want that in-depth experience. And so I want to stick around longer. Yeah.
got you. Got you. You're an incredibly busy woman, Dr. Bridget, but whenever you're not doing all of the things that you're doing on a regular basis, what are some things that you like to do that many people may not know you like to do? As far as your favorite hobbies and stuff.
I like food. I used to like to cook. I gave that up to work. So I do like experiencing new restaurants, that kind of thing. I was a really active rollerblader.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I really love that. And it's like flying and freedom and all that. Um, I like doing nothing. And I say that because my mind is going all the time. And when I have that opportunity to, whether it's active meditation or just not just watching TV, I don't even want to do that. When I just am allowed to be in silence, I don't get that enough. And so I know that sounds boring.
No, there's nothing wrong
I
with
like
that.
live music. I don't know. I'm trying to.
No, it's okay. It's just having that moment of peace and quiet time and just that sense of me time to kind of unwind.
Yeah, really important.
It really is. I agree with that 100%. And it's like something about that me time just brings a little bit more sanity to where you can
Mhm.
continue to remain productive and stay focused on your sense of purpose on whatever you're trying to do without
Absolutely.
doubt. Of course.
Absolutely.
Last question, of course, Dr. Bridget, is that if you had the opportunity, right, to go back in time and talk to yourself 10 years ago, what would you tell yourself? And at the same time, with everything that you're doing at this current moment, where do you see yourself in the next 10 years?
Okay, so 10 years ago, what would I have told myself?
If you had the opportunity to go back in time and talk to yourself, what would you tell yourself?
Um, be patient. You're just getting started.
Okay.
And what was the second?
No, of course. If you had where do you see yourself overall with everything that you have going in the next 10 years? Where would you envision yourself?
Be patient. You're just getting started.
Patience, patience, patience is a virtue, and it can lead to a whole bunch of success. I mean,
To a couple books at least, right?
it can lead you the opportunity to tell your own story and continue to make his story within your own self. Well, Dr. Bridget, it's like if anyone wants to get in contact with you, or where can they buy like a copy of the wonderful Courage and Cannabis Volume 1 or 2? How can they get in contact with you? Like social media handles, stuff
Sure,
like that.
absolutely.
Buy your book.
So definitely the books, volume 1 and 2 are on Amazon, but they're also available with many of our authors. And so if you know an author, reach out to them. They're selling it. We have courageandcannabis.com, but our social media, where you can also buy our t-shirts and mugs and hats and beanies and book bags, I don't know, and all of that. Online or on social media, we are Courage and Can with 2 N's, Courage and Can Books. And for myself and my medical and coaching practice and whatever it is that I do, I am Dr. Bridget, MD, on all platforms.
Yes, this is probably like you see what I'm saying. This has definitely been probably the biggest podcast of the HFWB podcast series thus far, and it's for good reason. I mean, we have the lovely Dr. Bridget Cole Williams. This was her first time literally visiting Corpus Christi,
Yes.
Texas. She has never been here before, and for her to come from all the way from Detroit, Michigan to Cleveland, Ohio, everywhere across the country, the fact that she's here in the sparkling city by the sea, Thanks to, of course, Joint Venture Health and Wellness for putting together the wonderful book signing. I want to give, of course, a special shout out to the love of my life, Miss Emily Espinosa, who connected me to the lovely Candy Flores, which led to this overall connection. It's just like the overall beauty of just playing connect dots with individuals within the community and just establishing unity in the community to where we can build bridges and, of course, continue to grow together. And with that being said, Dr. Bridget, thank you for making time out of your busy schedule to simply bless us with your appearance on the HFWB podcast series. I'm truly honored, I'm truly humbled, and I'm just grateful for the overall experience and time I got to spend with you during your stay here in Corpus Christi, Texas.
I love this. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Candy, for bringing me here in Joint Ventures. I appreciate this. It's been amazing.
And with that being said, this wraps up another edition of the HFWB podcast series. I'm your host, Clifton Pope, encouraging y'all to stay healthy, wealthy, and blessed. Till next time, peace and love, y'all.
That's amazing. That was great. That was amazing.